Great. It's very professional.
Yeah.
I'm first interested to get to know more about your career path. So, Hannah, what originally sparked your interest in language?
Oh, I guess it was a long time ago now. But I think I've always been very interested in it because I grew up in a household with two languages, with an English mother and a Swedish father.
Okay.
And I think anyone in Switzerland and anyone who's bilingual, multilingual will know that you always have a bit of a special insight on language, sort of a meta-awareness of it in a way that's different to most people who are monolingual. And in the UK, at least, being monolingual is the absolute norm.
Okay.
I'm from a very rural area where having sort of foreign parents is quite unusual. And so I was always kind of tuned into language and I was always drawn to it from the beginning. And so I did my undergraduate at Edinburgh in linguistics. Prior to that I did a course for sort of I think they call it a youth talent course where they kind of gather people together for a weekend and trial new A-levels, which is the equivalent of Matura. They trial new A-levels, and they were planning at the time a linguistics A-level. And so I sort of did this trial run for them, and I loved it. I felt really passionate about it. I got really into it, and at that point I decided to study it at university level.
Do you remember a linguistic phenomenon that fascinated you in the very beginning?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. The earliest one would be that my dad, a Swede, could never pronounce the word joke, because Swedes would say yoke. And so we had a family joke, where anything that we found hilarious was a good old yoke. And I think I was the phenomenon of L1 transfer, what we'd call it now, of the influence from your mother tongue to a second language. That one was always something that interested me and has sort of stayed with me in my research now as well. Actually, a lot of the stuff I've done has looked at language contact, and that's one of the phenomenon where we see it's one of the sort of most obvious signs of language contact.
Nice. Looking back, how has your perspective on language changed since those early days?
I think probably, that phrase, I never get this right, but the phrase, the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know, whatever the phrase is, that's very much true. So I think at the beginning I thought, oh, this is really cool, interesting, and to be honest, I was quite a lazy student, so I probably thought it was going to be quite an easy subject. And then the more I got into it, the more complicated I realised it was, and how many subfields there were, how sort of far-reaching it was, how much it really shapes our daily lives, all of those kind of smaller, more complicated things that, at the time you think, oh, well, I don't really have to learn all about that. You realise are actually really important. And so I think my perspective maybe is that I'm more in awe of it than I was before. It's such a language, just really is. It is who we are. It makes us. And I think I realise that more and more the more I get into the field.
I would shift the discussion now towards your research. What big overarching question guide your work? That's a really hard question. You can skip it.
Can I think about it? Can I have 10 minutes to think about it? I guess in all threads of my research that is the idea of how does who we are manifest in our speech. That sort of concept is in pretty much everything I do, from the phonetic stuff to the LADO stuff, which is looking at language and a language analysis for the determination of origin. That's very much about who we are, our backgrounds impacting how we speak. And then also the variationist sociolinguistic stuff, the work I do looking at how language changes, or how language varies across different groups in society, across individuals. That's all about how our identity, who we are, how our childhood, our socialization, how all of that impacts how we speak.
Beautiful answer, given you didn't have the 10 minutes.
On the spot.
If you could answer one language-related question in your lifetime, one specific, what would it be?
Oh. Are individuals truly unique in a quantifiable, measurable way? Because I think we have this idea that every utterance that we make, every time we speak, that is a truly unique instance. We'll never be able to repeat. Even if we tried again and again, we'd never say it in exactly the same way. And that's kind of one of the key principles in the field of variationist linguistics, is that we always vary, not just between people, but within ourselves as well. And one of the sort of things that I look at, along with many other people, is, how can we capture that? How can we measure it? How can we analyze it? So I guess that would be the question I'd want to know.
Are there moments when language itself still surprise you?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Do you have an example?
I think, there are many ways it does. Some are very basic. So obviously I'm a Brit, and so I have pretty standard British lexicon, so my vocabulary is very British. And one of my closest friends is American, another linguist here. And we used to joke when we first met 10 years ago in 2015 that we discovered new words that differed between us, and we thought we found all of them. And then still to this day, 10 years later, even though I work in this field, I work in language variation, I still find words and I think, oh my gosh, you say that in the US? So that even sort of basic vocab stuff, there are things that surprise you all the time, and you want to know why that happened. Why do they say, the obvious ones, but why do they say sidewalk and we say pavement? That kind of stuff, those things crop up, and that's fun. But also language surprises me in many different ways in research all the time. You think you have a particular hypothesis and you're convinced that you're going to find it in a study, and then what you find is something completely different, and you have to try and interpret it, try and explain it, given what you know about a community or a particular theory, and that that's always a really cool part of the job, is looking at the results and thinking, oh, that's really not what I expected.
Okay. Let's take a look into the future, where linguistics is heading. Which current development in your field do you find most exciting?
Oh God, it's like a trap, but I have to say AI, right?
Up to you.
It's the obvious one, and it's true. AI is really changing the game. From in every aspect, AI helps us. I would say that that's something that we should keep an eye on, both in a good and a bad way. So obviously, along with AI in broader spheres, there are concerns about how it's getting a bit out of control, and sort of the human input is being lost, and that is the same for sociolinguistics as well, that we don't want AI to be doing every part of our work, because then where are we in that? I would say that is a huge thing to watch out for, both good and bad. And besides that, I would say what I think is really cool is that there are more and more projects combining supervision, teaching, and research. So it used to be that they were very divided, and now you can see more and more in the papers I'm reading, at least, where it's a student-led project, or students have collected the data along with the sort of principal investigator. You get more of a kind of the projects are clearly sort of multi-party, or there are students involved, and I think that's really cool. I really like that aspect, and I'm trying to do that as well, have students involved in work I'm doing, and I think that's really important, especially given kind of the threat to the humanities that we're facing at the moment, that with sort of slightly decreasing student numbers, etc. We don't know why, but that's sort of it's a global trend, not just here. So I think it's really important that the students really get into it from the beginning, and have a sort of, they get a taste of what it's like to work in a full-blown research project, not just a university thesis of their own. They really participate in a full research project.
What part of your what part of your work do you think is often misunderstood?
Oh, this is quite an easy one for me. The field of language analysis for determination of origin, which, as I mentioned, is to do with language analysis that's used in asylum cases, is a really sensitive topic even for many linguists who see it as something they don't really want to go near, that it's sort of tarnishes our reputation as scientists. I wish that people would maybe be a bit more open-minded about what it is and how it's used and how we can contribute to it. It's used in so many asylum cases around Europe. I mean, less so than it was actually, but still quite a few, and there still isn't as much communication between the agencies that do it and the sort of relevant linguists in academia who they could really inform each other and help each other in many ways, but there's still quite a divide, and then that's actually the point of my project, is to sort of bridge that divide.
And what do you enjoy most about your work, and what do you sometimes find difficult?
One of my favourite things is actually the teaching. As you know, I'm a docentin, so I teach quite a lot, and I love that. I think it's really cool to hear the opinions and voices of very, from students and people very different from me, and from older staff. There's quite a range of things you can learn from some students and vice versa, obviously. But I really love that part of my job.
Nice. Okay.
Oh my god, it's so hot in here.
Yeah, I know. But looking back and ahead, what advice would you give to someone just starting out in linguistics today?
I know it's really cliche to say be curious, but it really is, that is the most important thing. I think you can get boxed in quite early on with linguistics. You think, you take a course in syntax or something that's quite dry, theory. I mean, syntax is fascinating in real life, but you take maybe something very theoretical, and you think, oh my god, this is linguistics. This is quite. It's just not very fun, basically. And I think students often do those first introductory courses and think, this is not for me, this is quite boring. And actually, once you get that basic understanding, the sort of foundation level knowledge, that allows you, or opens up so many cool parts of language science, that I wish students would sort of stay curious enough in that world to push through the kind of initial part, which is very interesting in its own. I know I shouldn't say that because people do research that, but for me the really juicy cool stuff is the bits where you learn about language and people, language and use, language and society.
And is there a topic you would love to research but haven't had the opportunity yet?
No, there are too many. Honestly, I think if I had more time, I would want to look at more of the AI stuff that's coming in, like deepfake work, just because it is so prevalent and so important right now to look at. So I'd want to be involved in that. And I have a MA thesis student who's starting to look at it next term. But that's really like my only kind of avenue into it. If I had more time, I'd want to invest in that a bit more, because it's just so incredibly topical for us right now.
We're getting to the end. Is there a question you're rarely asked but would actually say a lot about your work?
I would want to be asked whether people appreciate your work. And it's an odd way of phrasing that, but people often ask linguists, unfortunately, why is this important? Why is this relevant? Why should we care about this? And I am so frustrated with that question, as are many linguists. And I wish I could do, the flip side of that and be asked, how do people react to your work? Because if you do things like forensic phonetics or critical sociolinguistics, where it's an applied linguistic field and you're engaging with people outside academia, you really see you see the impact directly sometimes. Like, I wish that we had people asked, and how do people react? Do people appreciate this? Because then we could actually say how important people find what we do.
And only then, if they really get to know it, it's kind of a rewarding tool.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. If listeners walk away from this podcast seeing linguistics as lively, as seeing linguistics as lively and relevant, I'm gonna go again. What will you have contributed most to that?
Oh God. I think that's probably overestimating any contribution I could have. But I would say I'm pretty enthusiastic as a person, and in teaching and in general chats about language. So I hope that I've been, or I would be in this and in general, I would be a sort of an upbeat, passionate representative for the field. That'd probably be my contribution.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. And that was it with the interview. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.